All right, 26-00284, Trooper B. Knapp.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Major Ashley on behalf of the people.
And Michael Taylor, P79497 on behalf of Caitlin Knapp, seated to my right.
Just Knapp, state your name.
Caitlin Knapp.
All right, today's date time set for preliminary examination. The court was made aware of an issue that came up with one of the people's witnesses. I have no issue whatsoever, of course, adjourning to accommodate those physical challenges. I figured, though, we could at least get it started. We had the afternoon, and the court's ready to put on whatever the people and defense want to put on today.
And thank you so much, Your Honor. And yes, I wanted to let the court staff know as soon as I was made aware. I was briefly talking to defense counsel just outside in the hallway. The only, caveats and sense notifying the court, I do believe the one exhibit that I need to admit can come in through 766.11b. So I don't know if there's going to be an objection by defense, but we can at least start testimony, we can make the arguments, and then if I must bring in my sergeant, I can do that. But I do actually believe, Judge, in light of that, I am going to be able to probably get through everything today and ask for bind over today.
Okay.
And we're prepared to proceed.
Very good. All right. Madam Prosecutor, go ahead.
And thank you so much, Your Honor. We will call Trooper Joshua Bilski, sorry, to the stand, please.
All right, Trooper, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
All right, you may be seated. Now, once you're comfortable, Trooper, if you could please state your full name and spell it for the record.
Yes, sir. Trooper Joshua Bilski, JOSHUABYLSKI.
All right, your witness.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed as a road trooper with the Michigan State Police.
And how long have you been with the Michigan State Police?
Coming up on 4 years in June.
And what is your current job capacity?
A road patrol trooper.
What does that entail?
Responding to crashes on the freeways, up in the neighborhoods, as well as taking a variety of calls and touches that we covered.
Taking you to July 5th of 2025, were you on duty?
Yes, I was.
What capacity were you working?
In road patrol.
And around 1 a.m., were you dispatched to West I-696?
Yes, I was.
Was that near Campbell Road?
Yes, ma'am.
City of Royal Oak?
Yes.
County of Oakland?
Yes, ma'am.
Why were you dispatched there?
I was dispatched for a multiple car blocking crash.
Did you in fact respond to that location?
Yes, I did.
What, if anything, did you observe when you arrived?
Upon arrival, I observed a very chaotic scene, I would say at first. I observed a Nissan Rogue on the right shoulder with heavy rear end crash damage. Dark in color BMW crossover style vehicle in the left lane with heavy front end damage as well as rear end damage. Then also a sport bike on the right shoulder.
Now, just for clarity of the record, when there is a multiple vehicle incident, do you label each vehicle as unit 1, 2, 3, etc.?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, could you tell me then, you mentioned a Nissan Rogue. What unit was that labeled as?
That would be labeled as unit 2.
And the BMW?
Unit 1.
And the motorcycle?
Unit 3.
Now, as you were going into this scene, what else were you observing after your initial observations of the 3 units?
I was observing crash damage on vehicles. Witnesses may have been standing by. I believe at that point in time, the occupants of the Rogue were sitting in their vehicle. The occupant of the BMW Unit 1 was outside of their vehicle talking to a road police officer, and the rider for the sport bike was in the back of a ambulance at that point in time I got there.
And were you able to have identification of the individual belonging on Unit 3?
Eventually, yes.
And what was the identification of that individual?
The rider was identified as Mr. Brian Wiggins.
During your investigation, at some point in time, did you receive notification or an update of Mr. Wiggins' status?
Yes, I believe shortly after the ambulance departed the scene for Beaumont or Cornwall at that time. Hospital in Royal Oak, I believe he lost pulse, breathing as well. He was at that point deceased.
Thank you. Now taking you back to the scene, did you make contact with the individual in Unit 1, the BMW?
Yes, I did.
Who was that individual?
That was Miss Caitlin Knapp.
And if Miss Knapp is in the courtroom, could you please identify her, something that she is wearing?
Yes, she is sitting at the table here. She's wearing a black sweater, I guess, with a black undershirt.
Thank you. And I saw that you were pointing with your left hand to your left side. Your Honor, for the record, may it reflect that the witness accurately identified the defendant.
No objection.
All right, record so reflect.
What were your initial observations upon making contact with the defendant?
She appeared to be in a very emotional state at that point. She mentioned at one point that she may have been having a panic attack. She did appear to be ebbing and flowing, as you could say, in a cyclical mood, up and down.
Did you notice any signs of intoxication from your initial observations?
Yeah, while speaking with Miss Knapp, I did notice a strong odor of alcohol emanating from her person.
Did you ask the defendant if she had been drinking?
Yes, I did.
And what did she tell you?
She stated she had 2 shots of liquor earlier in the evening.
Did she also indicate what happened on the freeway?
Yes, she did.
And what did she tell you?
She told me that she was driving, all of a sudden looked down at her watch for directions, as she's not from the area. All of a sudden hit the Nissan Road.
And what did she say happened next?
After that, she said she started going off to the left lane, and then she was hit by the motorcycle.
Did you perform any field sobriety tests on her?
Yes, I did.
And what did you start with?
I began with the horizontal gaze nystagmus test.
And what did you observe after completing that task?
In the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, I observed a lack of smooth pursuit in both eyes and distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation in both eyes.
What task did you perform next?
The walk and turn test.
What, if any, indications of intoxications did you observe after performing that task?
I noted 5 out of the 8 clues akin to that test. While she was in the starting position, Ms. Knapp lost her balance in the starting position, started the test too early. During the test, she stopped during the test, took the wrong number of steps, and made the wrong turn.
What task did you perform next?
The one-leg stand test.
And what, if any, signs of intoxications did you observe?
I noted 1 clue out of the 4 clues possible on that test. She lost her balance, or swayed in place at that point.
After completing those field sobriety tasks, did you ask the defendant for consent for a chemical test?
Yes, I did.
And did, in fact, the defendant consent to the chemical test?
Yes, she did.
After completing those chemical tests, were the evidence sent over to the Michigan State lab for analyzation or being analyzed?
Yes, they were placed in the outgoing mailbox, the Metro North Post. They were brought by a courier over to a facility in Lansing, which was the vials were then transferred over to the Lansing lab.
And at some point in time, did you receive those reports back?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you. Sir, I'm handing you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2. Can you please take a look at both of those exhibits? And in fact, are those the lab reports that you received back from the Michigan State Police Lab?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move into evidence, People's Proposed Exhibit 1 and 2 under 766.11B, but I don't believe there's no objection.
We received proper notice, no objection.
All right, same will be admitted.
And what were the results of those tests, or those reports?
The alcohol test returned 0.122 grams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood.
And was there any indication on People's Exhibit 2 of any other substance in the defendant's blood?
Yes, there were 2 different variants of THC blood as well.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
And may I publish People's 1 and 2 to the court?
You may.
Thank you. During your investigation, were you made aware of an autopsy being performed on Mr. Wiggins?
Yes, I was.
And did you receive that report back?
Yes, I did receive that report.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Okay.
I'm handing what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 3. If you could take a look at that exhibit. And is that the autopsy report that you received back?
This is the autopsy report, yes.
In Your Honor, I would move into evidence People's Proposed Exhibit 3, and I don't believe that there is an objection.
No objection.
All right, same will be admitted.
And may I publish to the court?
Okay.
Thank you. Further, during your investigation, were there other technicians that were on scene?
Yes, there was a accident investigator technician, Sergeant James. He did the on-scene accident investigator work.
And as being the officer in charge of the investigation, did you have a chance to look at the report that Sergeant James tendered?
Yes, I did.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Ready.
I'm handing what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 4. Could you please take a look at that? And is that the report that you received back from Sergeant James, who was the technical traffic crash investigator for this incident?
Yes, this report here was written by both Sergeant James and Specialist Sergeant Lindstrom, the accident reconstructionist on the case.
And may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would, under that same MCL 766.11B, move into evidence People's Proposed Exhibit 4.
No objection at this time.
All right, same will be admitted.
And may I tender to the court?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I may just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have nothing else for you, but defense counsel will.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. So Trooper, I appreciate sort of the overview. I just have a number of questions, I think, that pertain mostly to the evidence we uncovered about the sequence of events that led to the crash and sort of what happened afterwards. And so I asked you a question, it doesn't make sense, you need me to restate it, please just let me, okay?
Yes, sir.
So my understanding is that the sequence of events, as you laid out, was that vehicle 1 driven by Ms. Knapp rear-ended vehicle 2 in the left lane. Is that right?
Somewhere between the left and center lane, yes, sir.
And as a result of that rear-end collision, vehicle 2 spun to the right lane, and vehicle 1 driven by Ms. Knapp came to an uncontrolled rest in the far left lane of I-696. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you arrived on scene, there was also the motorcycle that was on the far right side of the road, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so there were 2 lanes that were not occupied by disabled vehicles, is that right? The center lane and the right lane at that point?
Yes, sir.
Were there other vehicles in the area that day? As far as like at the crash scene, had other people stopped?
I believe, I can't recall exactly how many vehicles were on scene, but yes, there were other vehicles.
Was it more than 2?
I can't recall the exact number.
When you arrived on scene, the other vehicles, were they occupied vehicles?
Again, I can't recall.
Were there pedestrians or civilians out there on the freeway that attempted to speak to you when you were doing a crash investigation?
Yes, there were pedestrians.
And what was the nature, if you could tell us, of how they came to be or what they were trying to tell?
The witnesses that I spoke with were in a vehicle that were shortly behind the sport bike while he was driving.
Okay. And did they attempt to give you an impression of what they just saw happen?
Yes, they did.
And what was that impression?
They advised they were watching the bike drive at a high rate of speed. They observed a crash up ahead they saw, and then ultimately they saw the bike hit one of the vehicles.
So the driver that was talking to you described seeing the crash that you described Ms. Knapp as having been involved in, coming to a complete stop, and then watching as the motorcycle rider continued at a high rate of speed and impacted Ms. Knapp's vehicle.
I can't recall if they stated that the vehicle came to a complete stop prior to the motorcycle hitting the vehicle. I do recall again a crash occurring shortly before.
So I guess that leads me to sort of the primary focus of my questioning here today, which is, do you have any evidence, or were you able to gather any witness statements that would give you sort of long after the initial crash between Ms. Knapp's vehicle and vehicle 2 when the motorcycle struck her vehicle?
Not based off of witness statements on scene, given the lay of the land, the geography of the roadway, as you could say. There is a large bridge that goes over I-75 right there. Roughly a quarter mile after that bridge is Campbell Road, which is where the initial crash and entire crash scene occurred. Again, with that being a quarter mile, that takes somewhere between 30 seconds to 45 seconds to traverse a passenger car behind a sport bike that's driving at a higher rate of speed than the speed limit could end up relatively close to them.
I see. So are you estimating then there would be roughly between 30 and 45 seconds between when the initial crash was visible and when the second impact occurred?
I can't testify to that at that point. I don't know where the witness vehicle was in relation to the sport bike and in relation to the crash.
I appreciate that. Were you able to get contact information of any of the pedestrian witnesses that said they indicated that they observed the crash happen?
Yes.
Okay. And would that be documented in your reports anywhere?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Were there any other witnesses that were on scene that attempted to talk to you besides the one driver?
The driver is 2 occupants. That's all I recall speaking to.
And you indicated there may have been a number of vehicles and pedestrians that were out there at the scene. When you were investigating or you initially responded to the scene, did you ask those people to leave the scene because it would create some sort of safety issue?
I'm unsure that's a common practice, that they're not initial witnesses of the crash itself. I do ask people to leave the scene as it's unsafe.
And the time and date of the crash, do you recall the weather and lighting conditions were?
Yes, the roadway was lit up to Campbell Road, past Campbell and under the Campbell Bridge. It was unlit. The road conditions were dry. It was a dry evening. Very nice summer day.
Okay, and that stretch of roadway on I-696, other than the overpass that we talked about and then Campbell Road, are there any vision obstructions in that area that would prevent you from seeing into the direction ahead?
No, it's a clear straight roadway.
Okay. And other than the motorcycle where the decedent crashed into Ms. Knapp's vehicle, were there any other secondary crashes or independent crashes that happened back from the crash site where Ms. Knapp's vehicle came through?
Not that I observed on scene and not that was reported to me.
Okay, so to your knowledge, there were no other crashes, no other drivers failed to appreciate or avoid this crash scene. And when you indicated earlier the witness that talked to you about having observed the crash said that the motorcycle rider was proceeding at a high rate of speed, were you able to get a speed estimate from that witness?
I was not. No.
Okay. Did you participate or facilitate the crash reconstruction in this case?
I did not participate in the crash reconstruction.
Did you obtain any of the engine control module downloads or other measurements that may have been used in the crash reconstruction?
I did not myself.
To your knowledge, was there a GoPro affixed to the motorcycle rider that was operating vehicle number 3 at the time of his secondary crash?
Yes, there was.
And my understanding is that you drafted a search warrant to review the video from that GoPro, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to extract video and review that?
Yes.
And can you tell us what, if anything, you observed about the GoPro footage as it pertains to this crash?
I cannot recall exact time frames or speeds. From, again, what I recall almost a year ago now reviewing it. It was, you can't really see the speedometer again from what I recall. you see the bike driving at a high rate of speed, and then you see some commotion up ahead, and then all of a sudden the driver of the motorcycle immediately applies heavy brakes, and then the video terminates.
From reviewing that video, are you able to determine what lane of travel the motorcycle rider was originally traveling before the crash occurred?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. And so you don't know whether he was traveling in the left lane and then ran straight into Ms. Knapp's vehicle, or if he came from a different lane and then drove in a direction that allowed that collision to occur.
Correct.
Okay. And just to clarify for today's purposes, prior to your testimony today, you reviewed your Michigan State Police incident report, is that right?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any other materials?
My body worn camera from the incident, yes.
So if there is a disagreement between your testimony here today and something that's captured on body worn camera, you would agree that the camera is the more accurate version of events?
Yes.
Okay. And would that include any sort of statements that you might have made on scene to Ms. Knapp or the other witnesses about things that you were observing at that time?
Yes.
That would have been fresher in your mind and in your memory than it is today?
Yes.
Okay. Based on your review of the scene at the time that you were out there investigating this crash, one of the factors that I'm trying to explore here is what precluded the motorcycle rider from making the stop that the other witnesses made. Were you able to examine the motorcycle after the crash?
I guess I should say, inspected the motorcycle briefly. I just took a brief overview of it on scene. I did not do the inspection at the crash.
Sure. Did you observe on scene any heavy damage to sort of the handlebars, the braking mechanisms, or anything like that?
There appeared to be crash damage to the front of the vehicle. Again, the extent of which I can't exactly say.
And from your review of the footage, the motorcyclist braked hard prior to impact, and so that indicates at least that the brakes were functional at that point.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And so, other than the motorcyclist's speed and failing to observe the crash scene ahead of him, is there anything that you were aware of in the course of your investigation that would have deprived him of the opportunity to make the same stop that the other drivers made to avoid crashing into Ms. Knapp's vehicle?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
All right, I have a couple of follow-up questions just on the OWI investigation. I'll be brief on that topic though, okay? So one of the things that the assistant prosecutor went over with you was your rendition of standardized field sobriety tests. When you decided to ask Ms. Knapp to participate in the standardized field sobriety test, was that based on the odor of intoxicants alone?
The odor of intoxicants and the statement that she had been drinking.
She drank it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that you did the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, which is a standardized field sobriety test, right?
Yes, sir.
And two of the clues that you indicated was lack of smooth pursuit and distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you observe nystagmus prior to the onset of 45 degrees?
I did not know.
Okay. So there was at least one clue that was not present during that test.
Technically, it would be 2 clues out of 6 that were not present. I observed 4 out of 6 clues.
Okay.
Yes.
I grouped some of them together.
Yeah, I know. It's
So then the next test was the walk and turn test, and you indicated that she sort of took the turn wrong, took the wrong number of steps, effectively failed to follow the directions of that test.
yes.
And then the third one was the one-legged stand. You indicated that she sort of swayed in place, and that was an indication that she had a lack of control over her balance.
Yes, sir.
Based on your review of those tests, you made the determination that she may be under the influence of alcohol. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But earlier you also indicated that her emotional state when you first talked to her was, I think you used the term cyclical, like she was kind of up and down when you were talking to her. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So before you started the standardized field sobriety test, did she have any difficulty with balance or gait or or speech that allowed you, that gave you cause for concern that she might not be able to participate in those tests?
Not that I observed, and I also, in my pre-arrest screen, I also asked if there's any issues walking, standing like normal.
And she denied any of it?
Correct.
Okay. And then, outside of the standardized field sobriety test, did you make any observations of her behavior on scene after the crash that caused you to think that she could not perform motor skills correctly? I mean, did she show any signs of like neurological impairment or injury that you were concerned about?
Not that was readily available to me.
You know, she was examined medically after the crash.
From what I recall, she was spoken to by a EMT or paramedic on scene, yes.
And so from the crash scene, did you take her to the hospital for blood draw?
I conducted the blood draw. Well, I brought her to the Metro North Post for the blood draw.
Okay. And they did it, the nurse there did it?
Paramedic came to the post and did the blood draw.
Sorry. But there were no medical examinations conducted either by paramedics or at a hospital prior to her arrest that you're aware of?
Ms. Knapp was ultimately turned over to the hospital after the blood draw.
Okay. You're not familiar with the outcome of that stay?
Correct.
Okay. When, I'm reading this from your report, I just want to make sure I get this accurate. Earlier I asked you if you participated in the crash reconstruction by obtaining any data or doing any measurements. If Sergeant James's report indicated that you were the one that sought authorization for the EDR, the engine control module downloads, is that accurate?
Yes,
You would have been involved in getting the search warrant for that?
Yes, I drafted the search warrant for the EDRs for both vehicles as well as the yes.
But then Sergeant James would have been the one to do the download of that vehicle?
Specialist Sergeant Lindstrom was the
Okay.
who conducted it. Yes.
Thanks. I just wanted clarification so I could kind of understand who was handling that data. All right. Have you reviewed the crash data that went into the accident reconstruction report in this case?
Briefly when I received it, yes.
Okay. And in your review of that data, were you aware of the pre-crash status or the speed of Ms. Knapp's vehicle?
If I recall correctly, there was an issue with the vehicle being imported from Germany, I believe. So the EDR was not compatible with our technology.
Okay. All right. And just for last clarification, to your knowledge, the Suzuki GSX-R 1000 that was ridden in the secondary crash in this case, those are not susceptible to engine control module download. They don't have an onboard computer that tracks speed prior to impact or deployment events or those things, right?
Correct.
All right. So to your knowledge, we have no information one way or the other of the motorcycle rider's speed prior to impact or any behaviors that he would have been engaged in other than the fact that he collided with the disabled vehicle, Ms. Knapp's vehicle on the left. I have no further questions at this time.
Your Honor, I have none.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, based on the stipulation and the evidence of People's Exhibit 4, I do not feel the need to call an additional witness, so the people will rest at this time.
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. I would ask for you to find over count 1. Based on the testimony today, we did learn that the defendant operated a motor vehicle upon I-696. She was Unit 1 of that BMW. We also learned that her blood alcohol content came back at 0.112. We also know that from her statements, she consumed alcohol prior to operating that motor vehicle, and she voluntarily still decided to drive that vehicle knowing that she had consumed alcohol. And fifth, Your Honor, that the defendant's operation of the vehicle caused the death of Mr. Wiggins. As you can see from People's Exhibit 4, the crash reconstruction technician found that Unit 1 being the BMW, being the defendant, was the at-fault driver here, Your Honor. Any other causation issue pursuant to case law is up for the trial of facts, so that would be a circuit court issue that is pursuant to People v. Morgan 2024 MISH Act, People v. SOARES 2011 MISH Act, as well as People v. Easel at BEZEL, which is the court of Michigan Supreme Court case, 486 Mich. 184. So based on that probable cause standard, I would ask for you to bind over for arraignment in the circuit court.
And thank you, Your Honor. The prosecutor correctly identified the issue that we would raise as to the bind over. I recognize that causation is typically a question of fact for the jury. I just want to preserve for the record that we would object to bind over on the basis that the prosecutor has an obligation to disprove that the decedent's driving was a superseding intervening cause. I recognize that on this basis, the court is likely to find a question of fact, but we would object to bind over on the basis.
And I think you have to preserve the record in that fashion. There may be some issues that will be explored at greater length at trial regarding that issue. I think that defense certainly started today to explore those issues, but there really wasn't enough on the record for the court to conclude that that avenue at this point in time would result in anything other than a question of fact. Obviously, this is a devastating event, but as far as the obligations of the prosecution today for this hearing, you've met your burden, and this matter will be bound over as charged, and bond will be continued. Anything else for the record?
Nothing else, Your Honor. I may retrieve my exhibits.
Anything else, counsel?
Your Honor, we had previously broached the topic of switching from alcohol tether to your analysis as the primary mode of alcohol testing and drug testing in this case, given that there's sort of a little bit of a medical issue developing a rash from the tether. You indicated prior to the exam date that you were not willing to amend bond at that point, but you would take it under advisement and think about it today. So I just want to re-raise that issue to see if the court is satisfied, given that she's had a track record of complete negative tests to allow for continued random urinalysis.
What are your thoughts on prosecutors?
Your Honor, I would object to any change in the bond conditions. If there is some type of rash or medical condition that is coming from this tether, then I would ask for medical documentation of that. I also note that now we are over the bind over. This has been bound over as charged, so people have met their preliminary burden. So this is to go to the circuit court. Further, Your Honor, we are getting close to the summer. We are getting close to Memorial Day, 4th of July, which is close to the anniversary of this incident happening, which again, summer, you know, as a judge, things get a little crazier and defendants sometimes stray off of the path. So I would object to any modification of bond, but would allow defense to bring it up in the circuit court.
What I would suggest, because the court has put some of the most substantial terms that this court has put in place on any sort of drinking and driving charge, and I think that it was right to do so. And I will note for the record that Ms. Knapp has followed through on a number of the obligations, the support group meetings, the in-person requirements. I have not heard anything related to any social media posts or anything like that. And prosecutor, have you been made aware of anything that's problematic?
Your Honor, I have not made aware of anything problematic at this time.
Okay. The drug testing, the issues related to the THC, it seems to be coming out of her system, which is encouraging. I do feel strongly that given the facts that I've heard, as well as what I was made aware of when I set the bond conditions, that a tether is appropriate. Now, there are alternatives, which I think really are only up for consideration if there is a documented medical challenge. So I can see where the prosecutors come from. If there's a documented medical issue, then there are still substantial interventions testing wise that can still accomplish the same goals. So I certainly am not going to make any adjustments now, but I will say if there continues to be a medical issue, you know, a proposal of a sober link, at least I would say 5 to 6 times a day, or ETGs 3 to 4 times a week, would accomplish very similar goals to the tether, which is, you know, ultimately the strength of the tether is we know 24/7 that there's no alcohol going in our system.
Sure.
And everything else is going to pale in comparison to that. But the sober link at a high level can get close, and ETG at a maximum frequency can get close. But I wouldn't even explore that or expect the prosecutor to even hear anything like that unless there's an actual physical problem with the tether that's demonstrable.
I talked to Ms. Knapp about this ahead of time. I let her know that this may be an issue that we would raise by motion with the circuit court once we have a substantial basis to lay that out. I understand under the circumstances, both because it's not going to be this court's case going forward and because of the concerns here that might be the case. I will talk to Ms. Knapp about the rigor of maintaining a SoberLink device and how intrusive that can be, and I'll leave it up to her to decide if we should proceed with asking for that in circuit court.
I mean, that's the other challenge. The SoberLink, you have to remember 6 times a day to blow into a device. With the ETGs, you have to, find transportation to get to a location to actually test. So there are pros and cons with all of that. But from what I can at least tell to this point in time, even with the significant bond conditions that were put in place, it does appear, Madam Prosecutor, that she is otherwise in compliance. To your knowledge, if you knew anything different, I expect you to bring it to me.
If I knew anything different, the court would know already.
All right. Thank you both. Good luck to
Thanks,
everyone.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Please.
Well, counsel.